thank the Minister for bringing the bill to the House today, and I'm pleased to get the opportunity to discuss both the legislation and the topic more broadly. It is a piece of legislation that Sinn Féin are broadly in support of, and we are happy to engage with Minister Flanagan on this at the relevant stages as it makes its progress through the Houses. To the content of the bill itself, it appears to contain what I and my party believe to be changes in the law that are sensible and necessary, particularly the equalisation of proposed sentencing between genders. Although it is a step forward in laws and cases involving sexual offences, we do, however, feel it is somewhat piecemeal, and that much more can be done regarding consistency in sentencing, a point that my colleague Donncha O'Leary has previously raised with the Minister. And that is in relation to sentencing guidelines, a point I intend to return to, and I hope that you can provide some commentary on that point. This bill has two primary purposes. Firstly, to amend the Punishment of Incest Act 1908 to address a gender anomaly in penalties, something which we are supportive of, and also to amend the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2017 to provide for presumptive minimum sentences for repeat sex offenders, which we will also be supporting. With regard to the former, it is a matter that was discussed during the Sexual Offences Bill 2015, and both my colleague Jonathan O'Brien and Fianna Fáil's Jim O'Callaghan raised concerns around the approach to harmonisation, that the benefit to the public by any increase and harmonisation to life imprisonment had not been demonstrated. It appears that the Minister has listened to this point and responded with a sentence of up to 10 years in this bill, and that it applies indeed to both men and women. There are still anomalies when it comes to the law on incest which require further consideration. Firstly, that the wording still implies that a woman cannot initiate incest, as it is worded that any woman who permits. Likewise, it is limited to carnal knowledge, therefore excluding acts of abuse and incest which fall short of intercourse, and also excludes certain same-sex relationships. These are issues which require amendment, and I would ask the Minister to consider that this is an opportunity that we might have to address that. The significant amendment to the Act of 2017 is both detailed and welcome. Where an offender is convicted of a sexual offence listed in the schedule to the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2017 and is sentenced to imprisonment for a period of at least 5 years, and is subsequently, within a period of 10 years, convicted of a further offence listed in the schedule, the court shall, when imposing sentences for that offence, specify the minimum term of imprisonment to be served by the person. The minimum period of imprisonment shall be 3/4 of the maximum term of imprisonment prescribed by law in respect of such an offence, and where the maximum term is life imprisonment, the minimum shall be specified as a term of not less than 10 years. The court will have discretion in the application of the sentence if it is satisfied that it would be disproportionate in all the circumstances of the case. Section 25 can be triggered by a subsequent offence which is committed while in prison. Now, I think you will agree, Minister, that it takes 2 or 3 readings of the specific proposal to understand it entirely. Essentially, though it means that a person who has committed a serious sexual offence, that in the calculation of the sentence of a further relevant sexual offence, the length of the sentence handed down for that second offence will be a minimum of 3/4 of that first sentence. This is very similar to the Criminal Justice Act 07, and like in that bill, it also includes scope for deviation from the minimum sentence where it would be disproportionate. Hence, it is a presumptive minimum sentence as opposed to a mandatory minimum. This has been described by O'Malley in Sentencing Law and Practice as a significant safety valve. I think this makes sense for the most part, in that those who repeatedly offend, carrying out such heinous crimes and leaving a trail of devastation in their wake, have clearly not engaged or benefited from any rehabilitation attempts or services to provide them, making them a live danger to others. Sexual assault, or any crime of sexual nature, is a very serious crime that should and must carry one of the highest penalties. I don't need to go into the detail of both the psychological and the physical scars that assault leaves on the victims. While not perfect, the law around sexual offences is ever-changing, and we can still do much more in our efforts to protect the victims of sexual offences, be that their treatment by the courts and an increasing of funding that goes to services to deal with the victims of such crimes. More broadly, it is important that the Gardaí are recording their data accurately, as it has a knock-on effect on the wider system and how we deal with offences, in particular sexual assaults, as a society. I believe there are issues in the Gardaí about the culture and understanding of the importance of accurate data, that the current system being used by An Garda Síochána is not fit for purpose, and that their IT systems are in dire need of upgrading. This was a matter that was also touched on by the Commission on the Future of Policing, and the Minister must address this as a matter of priority. As I stated at the outset, I believe that a better and more comprehensive approach to reform of sentencing where it relates to sexual offences and relates to sexual guidelines is possible. You have agreed with my colleague Donncha Ó Laoghaire that this issue is one that you indeed support and indeed that needs to be progressed. It is vitally important that the public have confidence that our courts will hand down appropriate sentences that are both proportionate to the crimes committed. Unfortunately, that currently is not the case. There are widespread disparities in a number of areas, including sexual offences, some sentences which have drawn considerable comment and indeed anger. Time and time again, we have seen sentences handed down that are quite frankly inadequate. There are undoubtedly issues relating to inconsistency, leniency and light sentences. There are problems in other areas unrelated to what is being discussed here today, such as assault and in-road traffic issues. There is research on judicial sentencing habits conducted that has shown sentence lengths range from 14 days to 5 months in an assault case, while for a theft case, sentences range between 30 days and 9 months and between 2 and 12 months in road traffic and burglary cases. As a result, the public does not trust our justice system to deliver punishments that fit the crimes. As legislators, we have a duty to address what is a considerable issue in relation to our sentencing. It is our belief that collating, punishing and ensuring judges have these parameters is the best way to ensure consistency in sentencing. Deputy Ó Laoghaire met with Minister Flanagan over the summer, and he indicated that that minimum sentence guidelines would be introduced at the next stage of the Judicial Council bill. I hope that this stage will commence as a matter of urgency, as it would impact the specifics discussed within this bill, as well as addressing disparity in areas such as the ones I have outlined. To sum up, we will be supporting this bill. Sexual offences are especially heinous, intrusive, inherently violent and leave a long-lasting damage. It is important that we have strong enough legislation to tackle this to ensure that the sentences attached are fitting of the crime.